Hello, I'm Stephanie Herzog with the League of Women Voters of Portland, and you're watching the Video Voters Guide. It's designed to help you get to know the candidates that are running for the May primary. Today we have Brad Avakian, who is running for Secretary of State. Welcome, Brad.
Well, thank you, and thanks so much to the League of Women Voters for doing this Video Voters Guide. It's a terrific thing for the community.
Wonderful. So tell me a little bit about your background and what made you decide to run for this office.
Well, I'm Brad Avakian. I'm currently our state labor commissioner here in Oregon. Spent a little time in the state legislature before that and grew up on the west side of Portland, as did my wife Debbie and our two children, Nathan and Claire. And I have to say I've just loved serving as Oregon's labor commissioner. We've taken a great step forward in bringing shop classes back to our middle schools and high schools. It's my job to make sure people are kept free from discrimination and get paid every dime that they've earned. And now when I look at the Secretary of State's office, I know there's ways for us to really take that post to a whole new level too, starting with inspiring a new clean energy economy through the State Lands Board, returning civics education to our schools, and holding corporations accountable through the State Audits Division.
Wonderful. What could you do as Secretary of State to ensure campaign contribution transparency to the public?
Yeah, so important today to make sure not only that we know where money is coming from, because you know there are millions of dollars that wash across our borders, wiping out the voices of everyday Oregonians. We must make sure that campaign contributions are posted, that they can clearly be seen, and we need to have campaign finance limits to take away the big money that's influencing our elections. I'll pass a campaign finance limits bill in Oregon, make the ballot more accessible to people, and make it a fairer process for all of our elections.
Okay. The Secretary of State oversees archives, audits, and corporations. What would you recommend for changes or improvements in these areas?
Well, the Audits Division, you know, is responsible for tracking tax dollars in the state agencies, making sure the tax dollars are being spent as they should. But you know, we have hundreds of millions of dollars that leave the state agencies into the private sector to private corporations that are contracting with the state. We're going to audit that money too and make sure that those private corporations are using the money as intended, and even more, that they're following our minimum wage laws, our equal pay laws, our public contracting laws. If they're not treating their employees fairly and they're not using the tax dollars as they should be used, then those corporations won't be contracting with the state of Oregon anymore.
Okay. You mentioned before about the State Land Board, and the Secretary of State is a member of the board. Can you explain what kind of decisions the Land Board makes and how these decisions impact Oregonians?
The Secretary of State, along with the Treasurer and the Governor, comprise our Land Board, and it oversees the entire Oregon coast, all of our navigable rivers and our state forests and other state lands. And it's charged with using those state lands for their best economic purpose in order to support the Common School Fund, our public schools. Well, that's the place where I think we launch a new effort in clean energy technologies, make Oregon a global leader in the fight against climate change. So you'll see us developing geothermal technologies in central and southern Oregon, maybe wave technologies on the coast, environmentally safe solar fields in eastern Oregon. Not just good for Oregon's environment, but really making Oregon a player worldwide in this booming clean energy economy. It'll be good for our public schools. It'll be great for our environment too.
In your opinion, what are some of the most difficult decisions that a Secretary of State faces? And how would you handle the political backlash and publicity from a controversial decision?
You know, I've been in public service for some time, and I don't concern myself with the backlash. There's important work that needs to be done, and it's important to just get to the work. Now, here's just one example. It's terrific that Oregonians can actually pass their own laws through our initiative system. But how many folks out there have read a ballot measure title, and then read it again, and then read it again, and still try and figure out what it really does and how the title really relates to what the effect of the measure is going to be. Well, you'll see me partnering very closely with other state officials to make sure that ballot measure titles really truly reflect the effect of the measure itself, and that the description of the measure is easily understandable and honest. So that when we all as voters pick up the voter's pamphlet and want to cast our ballot, we have all the information we need and can rely on it to make our choices.
We have a couple minutes left. What particular issues would you like to discuss?
Well, you know, as Labor Commissioner, some folks may have followed the great success we've had in bringing shop classes back to our middle schools and high schools. In just the last few years, 343 of Oregon's schools now have shop class that didn't before. As the state's chief elections officer, I'll build the coalition to do the same exact thing with civics education. Oregon's ahead of the curve with vote by mail and our new motor voter, but I think now it's time to start inspiring people to want to vote, to want to be a part of our communities. And that starts with the return of civics education. And as a part of that, the creation of the Oregon Youth Vote, where we will get ballots to all of our schools for each one of its students. Students will study the candidates and the ballot measures in their social studies or civics class. And we'll actually have our students, ages 8 to 17 or whatever we decide, vote in every election. Bring up young people understanding the process and the value of voting. Now, it won't count in the official results, but you know what? After the election is done, we'll count up those youth vote ballots and we'll show Oregon what young people thought.
Well, that's a perfect wrap up. We want to remind you that if you haven't registered to vote, you have until April 26th to register for the May primary, and the May primary is May 17th. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Brad Avakian, for your service.
Thank you.